Welcome to Wine Country at Work. I'm Ralph Dimichis, your tour guide. This episode we're going to visit the wine train. We're going to start off in the yard, we're going to go into the kitchens, and then we're going to ride up valley with them. And as you watch the show, you'll see why they fit in perfectly to our theme, Wine Country at Work. So, all aboard. The best way to describe the wine train is graceful. It doesn't bump and clank its way through dark tunnels like a subway, or rush through the world like a commuter train. The wine train rocks gently along, taking its time, while the world flows by outside the windows. The wine train deals with the mechanical issues of every railroad: engines, tracks, wheel bearings, and road crossings. But it is a little less stressful. After all, whatever happens on the wine train, it's only rolling at 20 or 25 miles per hour. But it is remarkable how well they maintain their schedules, because this train is an antique. It is a moving museum, without computers or digital controls. It is run just like you make a great wine. You build on your history, and you do everything by hand. It makes the day on board a patient, graceful, and very relaxing experience, where the journey and the destination are all wrapped up together. I've often described the wine train to my guests as a restaurant on wheels, and yet that description falls short. It is a much bigger experience. First of all, it's a great restaurant. If this was a corner place in a small town, it would be the best restaurant in town. The ingredients are top-notch, the recipes are scrumptious, and the presentation is elegant. But because it is located in Napa, a place famous for its cuisine, and the experience of being on the wine train with its beautiful antique cars and the amazing scenery is so enchanting. Most people just remember the food as being delicious. The wine train fits perfectly in Napa, because this place is famous for its wine, and great wine is made by hand. For all of the science and technology that is used in winemaking, it is still human eyes and hands that grow the grapes, and the human palate that is the ultimate judge of quality. Everything on the wine train, from the engines to the kitchen to the dining room, is done the same way. The team deals with a unique challenge every day. The raw materials are prepared in the muscle kitchen. And then, all the ingredients are loaded into the nooks and crannies of the compact kitchens on board the train. Stoves are lit, plates laid out, and the process that began so early in the morning continues on board, where almost everything is cooked moments before it is set before the guests. This complicated two-step cooking process is performed twice daily for lunch and dinner. It is carefully timed and precisely planned out. After all, if you forget an ingredient when you're cooking on a train, it's not like you can run out to the store to pick some up. When the train heads out of the yard and up the valley, everything has to go with it. It is no surprise that the train looks so elegant. Most of the dining cars are from about 1915, a very stylish time. And the engines and dome cars are from the 1950s, when sleek was the way to go. The wine train holds the unique position on the Register of Historic Places as a rolling museum. That these compact kitchens can produce so many wonderful meals is remarkable, and not a square foot of workspace goes to waste. Even the kitchen train is smaller than it looks like from the outside because it shares the car with a narrow passageway for guests. They can see the kitchen in action and now and then chat with the chef. Like all good train trips, the passenger's experience begins at the station, where they are greeted and introduced to the remarkable history of the train. As they climb aboard, their trip begins the way so many events do in Napa, with a nice glass of wine. The wine train makes the best of the space it has by moving guests from lounge cars to dining cars on a schedule, delivering food and wine wherever they are. Finally, with a blast of the whistle and the clanging of the crossing bells, the train rolls out of the station and heads north, carrying the passengers away from the city and into one of the world's most beautiful wine valleys, Napa. There are two sides to the wine train. First, there is the side the passengers see, although we could just as easily call them guests, because the wine train is as much a restaurant as it is transportation. The other side of the wine train is behind the scenes, where the team and the equipment make it work day in and day out. As the ride goes on, the pace picks up in the kitchen, where the stream of plates heading to the dining room become a river. The bottleneck in the kitchen walkway is often choked with visitors wanting to see the magic happen, and rushed as they are, the team seems to take it in stride. To work in the kitchens and dining rooms of the wine train, you need to love to dance. That's because serving wine and hot dishes to guests who are feeling no pain, while your dining room rocks back and forth, requires a dancer's poise and an acrobat's sense of balance. In this land of foodies, part of the chef's job is to be an ambassador, in between helping to get the meals to the tables.
To Colorado. They opened the first brew pub in Colorado back in '88. Yes. And one of the breweries that I opened was in Colorado. Napa Wine Company because I wanted to learn a lot more. Okay. Yeah, Napa Wine Company has 85 wineries. So it's like
Their hospitality seems abundant. Where most local restaurants have their regular customers in between the tourists, the team here deals with an endless stream of new faces. Yet they demonstrate a wonderful graciousness while they work in truly unique and often challenging conditions. Maybe it is the magic of the train experience, liberally infused with great wine and food, that brings out that childlike joy in people that dissolves barriers between kindred spirits. The beauty of the Napa Valley is complicated, and the view from the wine train offers an original perspective. Trains are big, noisy things that travel through towns flanked by commercial buildings and workyards. But the wine train travels in solitary splendor. No other trains share those rails. Riding it shows you that, for all of its fame, Napa is a place where people work. They farm and drive tractors and wear hats to shade them from the sun. They make wonderful wines in beautiful buildings and hosts millions of visitors. It is when the wine train bursts out of the town into the expanse of the valley that it seems most at home. That's where you can appreciate the curves of the train, stretching out in view of the mountains and the vines. You hear the crossing bells clanging and see the couples riding on the shaded landings, arms wrapped around each other romantically. Napa is a major tourist destination, and one of the reasons people come here is to learn. The wine train is set up so that people can look into the kitchen and see how the process happens. And for the train buffs, there is a special ticket where you can ride up the valley in the locomotive behind the engineer, and then back down to the station in the dining car, because you are going to be hungry after all of that excitement.
That sounds like a fun venue tonight in the airport.
My son says slump so fast. That's when you
I've always wondered what it'd be like to see the Zimbabwe train, and
They're
We have two sons and a brother plus year, so awesome. Thank you. I'll splash that again.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So sweet.
One question my guests often ask me is whether the wine train stops at the wineries. It makes sense, So many of the important labels are alongside the tracks. But fitting a great dinner into a wine tour is tricky. So the train stops at one winery and the passengers have the option of getting off for a tasting if they like. It is a wonderful experience to enjoy a great dinner with good company while you watch the wineries drift by the window. Some are famous and others are popular, which is the nature of wine country, where there are many kinds of wines because there are many kinds of people. At one time, the train tracks ran the length of the Napa Valley, north to Calistoga, and it carried a mix of freight and people for many years. The right-of-way waited a long time for the wine train to take its place, and it was not an easy voyage. They had to deal with a lot of resistance. That's normal in a farming area where change is rarely welcomed with open arms. Now the tracks go from the heart of the city of Napa to downtown St. Helena. This pretty little town with great stores and restaurants was named after the nearby mountain just north of Calistoga, which in turn was named by a Russian princess after the patron saint of her aunt, the Tsarina. In the tight confines of the little town of St. Helena, a wide circle of tracks is impractical. So instead, the train travels with two engines. At St. Helena, they unhook from the train and slip onto a parallel track so that they can take their place at the other end of the train for the ride south. People sometimes wonder why they don't just run the train backwards. Well, besides looking silly, you need the engine to light the way home during the dinner ride. And besides, these engines are 60 years old. It doesn't hurt to have an extra along. Like all good railroads, they have to stay on schedule, and the restaurant has to perform on time, while traveling on a rolling museum. In this world of computers and processed foods, this experience is handmade. From the mechanics greasing the wheel bearings, the chefs chopping and stirring, and the waitstaff pulling corks by the thousands, filling glasses while rocking with the motion of the train. There is something enchanting about the combination of good food, wine, and trains. And it takes hard work and organization to make that magic happen. Well, thanks for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did. And until next time, Ralph Dimitrios from Wine Country at Work, Asante.